This is Mike Felt for WesternHerald.com previewing Western Michigan's battle with Michigan State on Saturday. For these two teams, it's a similar experience. Both had high hopes entering the season. Both teams enter both 4-5 overall and 3-3 in the conference. When looking at Michigan State, they've had a number of heartbreaking losses this season, most notably against Iowa, losing with 2 seconds left with a touchdown to win the game for the Hawkeyes. Of course, a last-second field goal by Central Michigan also in the cards for Michigan State. Very similar to some losses Western Michigan has had, losing a heartbreaker in the last second to Indiana. Central Michigan's loss here at Waldo Stadium. So these two teams have a lot in common. Of course, there's something else that these two teams have that are similar to one another, recruits. Of course, Michigan State linebacker Greg Jones and running back Larry Caper both considered coming to Western Michigan. Greg Jones was a little bit of a long shot, but Larry Caper was a little bit different. He was a Battle Creek Central alum. He's from Battle Creek, and his dad, Larry Sr., is a Western Michigan alum. So he highly considered Western Michigan before ending up with the Spartans. But don't be fooled, on Saturday, they will not be patronizing Western Michigan. Greg Jones leads the nation with over 100 tackles, and Larry Caper leads the team with over 300 rushing yards and has 6 touchdowns on the ground for the Spartans. Injuries, of course, this time of the season play a big factor. For Western Michigan, it looks like Austin Pritchard will play. He was actually cleared to play last Saturday, but head coach Bill Cubitt wanted to keep him out because he didn't practice all week. Juan Nunez is not expected to go. He had trouble practicing earlier this week. And Jordan White, who has been on and off all season long, looks like he's ready to go. He's practiced. It's not certain whether he'll be 100%, but it looks like he's a possibility for this game. For Michigan State, head coach Mark D'Antonio did not release a depth chart this week. He was not willing to release names of who was hurt, but admitted that his team is banged up. Of course, when playing football in November with no bye week, that's kind of what happens. With the receiving core, with Nunez out and White back in, Western quarterback Tim Hiller has had to find other targets this season. It'll be interesting because Michigan State has a secondary that, although very talented, has struggled this past season. Most notably last week against Minnesota, they gave up over 400 yards passing and 5 touchdowns in the air. So it'll be a big question whether or not Tim Hiller can find his receivers, can pass the ball around, and whether it causes Michigan State fits. Of course, with having a guy like Greg Jones on your defense, it's very questionable whether or not that'll actually come into play, but it should be an interesting aspect to look at. Coach Cubitt did expect a very physical game. Their offensive line is, of course, very big and poses to be challenges for Western Michigan. Western is also a team that struggled defensively last week, so that'll be interesting to see when Michigan State's offense is on the field, what will happen. A couple side notes. Western Michigan is 2-0 against Big Ten teams in November while Coach Cubitt has been here. Of course, he's in his 5th season. Last year they defeated Illinois at Ford Field, and 2 years ago when Iowa was playing on their senior night, Western Michigan went in there and knocked them out of bowl contention at Kinnick Stadium. Very similar scenario at this point. Michigan State fighting for their bowl lives right now. Obviously Western Michigan is too. It'll be a very interesting matchup to see whether or not Michigan State can go in to Spartan Stadium and pull off another upset. Michigan State has been defeated twice by Western Michigan in its history. The last time they faced each other in 2003, though, Michigan State did pull off a close win at Spartan Stadium to start the 2003 campaign. A couple other side notes. Quarterback Tim Hiller has 93 touchdown passes now. He is the second active among quarterbacks in college football today. The only one he is behind is Texas quarterback Colt McCoy. He is 7 touchdown passes away from tying former Marshall quarterback Chad Pennington for the most overall in Mid-American Conference history. And he's also 491 passing yards away to being the first Western Michigan quarterback ever in history to throw for 3,000 yards in 3 separate seasons. Running back Brennan West is also 176 yards away from being the 3rd running back in Western history to have back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons. So even though these two teams aren't going to win their respective conferences, the Mid-American Conference or Western, or the Big Ten for Michigan State. These two teams still have a lot to play for. Both teams have a chance to make bowl games. Both teams are looking to finish above 500 for the season. So even though this isn't exactly where these two teams wanted to be at this point, it's a very compelling matchup between two tough teams that are expected to play hard on Saturday. We'll have more from you from Spartan Stadium on Saturday. Until then, I'm Mike Belt, WesternHerald.com.